Perfect.
Welcome to Mysco College. My name is Jonathan Knowles and I'm with Wendy O'Brien. Today we're going to look at aeration, but before we start looking at the equipment used for aeration and the different techniques, first we want to look at the impacts that aeration can have on the golf green. We've taken some data readings across this 9th green here at Mysco. We've done some stimp meter readings, we've used the effective height of cut prism gauge, and importantly for aeration, we've taken some soil samples. So using the hole changer, we've been able to extract some root zone here, and we can show that there's been some aeration activity in the past, some hollow coring with some infill of some sand, and we can see that there's root development there. In addition to this, we can see that there's been some deep aeration, vertidraining happening, and we can see that roots have developed down these vertidrain holes. And this is great news. This shows that there's potential for root density down at deep depths, which is going to be good for absorbing moisture and absorbing the nutrients at lower levels. The problems that we have found on this 9th green though can be shown on this sample. Here we have some black layer forming in the top 50 to 75 millimeters. Now black layer forms when the root zone is compact and wet and the soil becomes anaerobic. Anaerobic bacteria form metal sulfides, and you get a hydrogen sulfide smell, the rotten egg smell forming as well. So it's also important to smell your root zone samples too. So how does this compaction form? What is compaction?
Okay, compaction can be associated with soil texture. Heavy clay soils can be more susceptible to compaction, whereas fine textured soils, for example USGA spec greens, they can take a lot longer for the compaction to build up. Compaction tends to be in the top 150 millimeters. Degree of pressure. This can be the type of machinery used on the greens during normal maintenance. For example, tractor mounted equipment, ride-on equipment and pedestrian mowers all equate to that degree of pressure, as well as the foot traffic, so the amount of plays that you're having over the green. Frequency of pressure. This is the frequency that you complete your maintenance practices. So excessive rolling, this can help aid compaction. Also, frequent mowing conditions. You may find that on your greens you can see a big difference of the compaction levels on your clean-up cuts compared to where you mow in the centre of the green. Also your walk-off areas where you get the most foot traffic walking on and off the green from the players. Grass species. Different grass species grow at different rates, and you also have different rooting depths, and this can also equate to compaction. Soil water content. This is when the water fills up the air spaces in the soil, leading to compaction. This therefore means anaerobic conditions, which can lead to black layer.
Fundamentally, there are two forms of aeration. There's surface aeration, such as I'm carrying out here using the switch, and it also similar to brushing, where you're creating air in the surface of the turf. And then there's subsurface aeration, which we can see Dan carrying out over there, as he's punching holes into the turf and forcing air into the surface. Okay, so we've seen two types of subsurface aeration there, and we've seen some solid tine, pencil tines going into the turf surface there, and as you can see here, that we've been going in about an 80 millimetre depth, an 80 to 100 millimetre depth, and we can see that the impact of the aeration on the surface here is called minimal disruption, and this is ideal for the summer months as we've got minimal disruption to the surface, but we're also aiding as much water infiltration as possible, and we're getting as much air into that turf surface too, and that's obviously going to help with our water infiltration. And then we've also seen the slit tiner. Now we ordinarily wouldn't carry out slit tining during the summer months because the slits are susceptible to cracking during drier times, but just for demonstration purposes here we can see the type of job that these slits are doing. So they're going over the surface. Now in the winter months these will heal quite quickly, but you're going to be left with some surface area there that's going to aid water infiltration, and that carried out over the winter is going to be very beneficial.
Subsurface aeration increases the air-filled porosity of the soil. Simply, this is a matter of increasing the air spaces within the soil and decompacting the surface. The holes caused by aeration tines, of course, will increase water infiltration. But perhaps what we don't see is the gaseous exchange as the toxic gases of hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide and methane are released from the soil, as the air, which don't forget is proportionally high in nitrogen, replaces them. If the toxic gases are left in the soil, the effect is a build-up of anaerobes, converting hydrogen sulfide into metal sulfides, staining the soil, causing the visible black layer. An aerated soil is needed by plants for their metabolism of nutrients and a beneficial symbiotic relationship with beneficial fungi and beneficial invertebrates and beneficial bacteria. This helps to maintain health and lower the susceptibility of weeds, pests and disease. Aeration increases shoot density, improves root growth and maintains a firm dry surface.
Okay, so we're going to look at some of the different types of tines that you can have now. First one is a slitter tine. This can go on a pedestrian machine, it can also go on a tractor mounted machine as well. This will help aid water infiltration during the winter months when maybe you've got more wetter ground conditions without impacting the surface playability. Moving on to some of the tines that you might have on some of your pedestrian aerifiers now. First we're looking at a hollow tine, and you can see some of the cores here. This is great for thatch removal and also for heavier compacted areas. It's very good for gases exchanges and also for the water infiltration rates that you may need to get further through the subsurface soil. You can also use solid tines. Here we've got a pencil tine. This would be good to use during the summer months when it's a little bit drier and you're just aiding in for some of the water infiltration and also releasing some of the gases that are further down into the soil structure. You can use thicker tines during the autumn and spring. Basically these have a wider diameter, and again these could be used to help release any compaction and also to help with water infiltration and releasing the air gases into the subsurface. We've got a hand tool here that again can be used for more selected areas, smaller areas that you may need to just treat individually. I wouldn't recommend using this on wide scale locations. Here we've got a demo cassette that basically has different samples. You can see all the names across the top here of different units that you could get would go on a triplex. You've got two different types of brushes here. One of them is quite a stiff brush and the other one is a much softer and gentler brush, and you may vary the use of this depending on your grass species and also depending on your surface that you may be using it. We then move to a star slitter. The depth of this could be changed to go in mainly just to the initial thatch layer, just to open up that surface slightly, and again would aid water infiltration. We then go into a disc slitter. This is rounded off at the ends and can be a lot less impact than some of the other types of slitting mechanisms you can see here. Further along we have a scarifier. This would go in slightly deeper and would again open up the surface and help aid any thatch removal, as would the verticutter as well. You're really looking at going in and removing thatch with that. The vertigroom is here as well, next one along, and again you would look at doing the subsurface aeration with that machine. Then you have a sour roller which would spike across the surface of the green. As you can see, these can be quite shallow and you would vary that and tend to use that during the months that you wanted to just have some better water infiltration.
So we've looked at water infiltration and we've talked about gaseous exchange, but also we need to look at how to relieve compaction and deep-seated compaction. And one of the pieces of equipment that we use for this is what's called a vertidrain, and this is a special technique compared to other aerators and how it works. And we can demonstrate this with the garden fork. So the tines go into the ground, and then as it comes out of the ground it leverages, and what we can see there is that lifting of the ground, and this lifting of the ground is the decompaction. And what we can see there is fissures created, and these are created throughout the root zone where the tines are meeting it. As the tines come out, and we can see there that there's a definite lift. and this is beneficial for improving airfill porosity, so we're maximising our airfill porosity there. We can see here on this rugby pitch that there's been some vertidraining taken place, and we can see that the tines have been going in here to 200mm depth. So this is quite deep, and it's been part of a renovation programme with overseeding, fertilising and top dressing, and this is just summer routine renovation work for this rugby pitch like we've got here at Myerscough. So in summary, aeration is about increasing airfill porosity within the root zone, increasing water infiltration rates from the surface, and also relieving compaction from the surface as well.
By having a thorough evaluation of the compaction levels in your greens, you can develop your own maintenance programme and therefore decide on what machinery you're going to use and what tines you're also going to use. This will enable you to put your maintenance programme through the 12-month period that you need throughout the season, and also looking at a long-term plan for any deeper aeration that you may want to complete.
So it's about resolving short-term problems and foreseeing longer-term problems too. And it's about promoting a healthy grass sward, increasing root density and shoot density, so that the grass plant can withstand the pressures from weeds, pests and disease. Aeration is essentially the #1 task for greenkeeping.